All right, everybody, it is 12 o'clock on the dot, so I think we are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, whether here on Zoom or via our Facebook. Today, we're going to be talking about the Middle Chattahoochee region, what's being done to protect it, what we're doing as far as our work in that area. We're going to have two amazing speakers today, the first being Henry Jacobs, our Middle Chattahoochee Director, and Ashley DeCency, our Middle Chattahoochee Watershed Protection Specialist. And before I let them take it away, I just want to let everybody know that you're probably on mute right now. I will keep everybody muted for the majority of this presentation just to limit background noise, but we do hope to have some time at the end for questions. Feel free to add those in the chat here on Zoom or via our Facebook comments, and we will try to address them. You can also raise your hand later on when we do have that time for questions, and I'll unmute you that way and you can ask your question then. I think that's it. Henry, if you want to go ahead. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, good to be live, and looking forward to sharing an update on the work Chattahoochee Riverkeeper we're doing in the Middle Chattahoochee region. Just quick background, Henry Jacobs, I've been with Chattahoochee Riverkeeper for nearly 7 years now as the outreach director in the Middle Chat region, working out of our LaGrange outreach office. And I'll let Ashley, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, thanks Henry. So my name is Ashley DeCency, and yes, I'm the Middle Chattahoochee Watershed Protection Specialist, which is a mouthful, and I've been with Chattahoochee Riverkeeper since January. So yeah, only been here a few months. I also did my internship for my master's work last fall with the Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, and so they snagged me to come on full time, and yeah, so just getting started in the Mid-Chatt region in Columbus, Phenix City. So we've got a lot of good stuff going on.
Thanks, Ashley. And yeah, we're excited to have Ashley on board with us, a Columbus State graduate, and doing good things and really helping us do more throughout the region, but especially now in Columbus and Phenix City. So I'm gonna share my screen here so that we can follow along on a PowerPoint we have. And again, this presentation, we expect about 45 minutes with time included in that for questions at the end. So if anybody's having any issues seeing my screen, let me know. Otherwise, I'll get started here. For one, we will be sharing about
I can see you.
A number of things. We'll be talking about some of our work, water monitoring, education programs, and some other topics. So first thing I want to share is a 1-minute video that Riverkeeper recently produced. This is just kind of a good 1-minute highlight of everything that Chattahoochee Riverkeeper is involved in. So I'll press play. And I'm realizing I'm gonna pause so that I can turn the sound on. I realize that is a faux pas on my part. Apologies for that. Give me 1 second. We're all getting used to this wonderful technology online. So I'm gonna try one more time here and have audio. And I'm pressing share now. So hopefully you can see my screen. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint again. And again, this is a 1-minute video, hopefully with sound this time. So I hope that came through for you, and I hope it just gave a good kind of overview of the work Chattahoochee Riverkeeper is doing. So now what you're seeing here is a river basin map. On the left of the screen is the Chattahoochee River Basin in its entirety, all 400 plus miles from the headwaters up in North Georgia as it flows through the metro Atlanta area on down to the Mid-Chatt region, which you see to the right of the screen, just so folks are familiar with kind of the area that we're talking about in this chat. I'm gonna move to the next slide. And this is an image of the Chattahoochee River at Bushhead Shoals, or rather Daniel Shoals, which is just upstream of Franklin. And I'm sharing this because it's really significant. 25, 30 years ago, you would not have seen this scene. The river itself downstream of Atlanta was pretty bad off as far as water quality and being impacted by the city of Atlanta, especially sewer issues in the 80s and 90s. And in large part because of the efforts by Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, you know, since we were founded in 1994, most of our work has been addressing those issues and making the river a healthier place downstream of Atlanta. And so we have new parks on the river downstream of Atlanta. You have Chattahoochee Bend State Park. Moores Bridge Park is one of the newest in Carroll County there. You've got Bushhead Shoals Park, which should be coming soon. So we have the data to back this up too, that water quality in the river downstream of Atlanta is much improved compared to 20, 30 years ago. And it's something we want to celebrate. And what I have next to share with you is a 4-minute video, which kind of encompasses everything about the Middle Chattahoochee region that we're doing. And from there, we'll have some slides to follow. People are recognizing that the Chattahoochee River is important for so many reasons: for drinking water, for the health of people in the community, for the economy, for property values, for so many things. We depend on the river.
Diane Wilson from the city of Chattahoochee Hills, and we have a whole bunch of folks from our area who have come to enjoy the Chattahoochee River in our section. So we're all interested in getting more access so more people can enjoy this beautiful river.
The Chattahoochee River, as it flows downstream from the metro Atlanta area through Carroll County, Coweta County, Heard County, all the way into West Point Lake in Droop County, the river is healthier than it has been in decades, and that's something we want to celebrate.
See, it's only the past year or so that I've done anything on the Chattahoochee River. Growing up, we just heard tales about how gross the river was, how polluted it was, don't get near the river. So we went from McIntosh Reserve down here to Chattahoochee Bend State Park, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful ride. It was clean, the shoreline is just beautiful, we saw some wildlife. You really get the sense that you're on a grand adventure and not just, just south of Atlanta.
One really important reason to support a group like Chattahoochee Riverkeeper is because we are one of the few to be a watchdog, to be out there every day, every week, to have the hundreds of volunteers that help us collect water samples, to make sure that all the improvements we've made over the last decade or two continue, to get even better, but also to make sure that we don't go back to the way things were.
The river, as I knew it growing up and as I knew it when I acquired property on the river, was pretty nasty.
The metro area would pay a fine and dump dirty water into the river and send it down our way. It was cheaper for them to pay the fine than to fix the numerous problems that they were facing with their water system.
Chattahoochee Riverkeeper filed a lawsuit in federal court in 1995 that resulted in the city being forced to clean up the sewer discharges.
I got calls from developers and from a lot of people, civic leaders. What are you doing, suing the city of Atlanta? A few developers, once explained what we're trying to do, realized what was at stake.
The Chattahoochee Riverkeepers and Sally have basically led the effort that has required the city of Atlanta to make billions and billions of dollars of investment in its sewer system.
Those investments have yielded nearly $18 billion of new public and private investment. Had there not been a suit, had there not been a Sally Bethay, had there not been a board at the Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, the city of Atlanta would have dragged its feet for another 50 years.
Riverkeeper is a good fit for Alice Hufford Richards Charitable Fund giving because our giving is split into two, educational and environmental. We've been so pleased with their work locally and in this West Georgia region. Just in these 10 years, I can see the positive of the giving to Riverkeeper. So in terms of the regular cleanups and the quality of life component too, that in terms of use, especially at McIntosh Reserve, and with the new Carroll County Moores Bridge Park. So I applaud the leadership of Riverkeeper to ensure that it is accessible to all.
We appreciate everyone's support for Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, the programs we do like the floating classrooms, neighborhood water watch, and so much more. And by being a member, by being a supporter of Riverkeeper, you're investing in the health of the river for today and tomorrow. So thank you. So I hope you got something out of that video. Just again, our work here in the Middle Chattahoochee region really is focused on the gains we've made in terms of water quality downstream of Atlanta, flowing into West Point Lake. And we continue to do water monitoring weekly. And on West Point Lake as well, we have a separate water monitoring program that focuses on making sure that West Point Lake is healthy. And we just started that program just this week, and it'll run throughout the summer and into October, monitoring West Point Lake. What you see on your screen now, just want to share for a minute or two about the West Point Lake floating classroom, which is really one of the cornerstones of our work in the region. You can see, this is a photo taken from the air. We've got the floating classroom, the Miss Sally down there cruising. And this is a program modeled after Chattahoochee Riverkeeper's Lake Lanier floating classroom program that has been operated for nearly 20 years with our partner, the Apalachicola Nature Science Center. Here on West Point Lake, we launched this second floating classroom in 2015. Riverkeeper operates and does all the scheduling, and we've got a great team of instructors and boat captains who help us run this program. Obviously, we've been on pause this spring due to the COVID-19, and we are monitoring that situation closely and really following what the local school systems are and their decisions are as far as resuming the program. But just to highlight the work we did in 2019, you can see the number of students, teachers, and adults served. Since launching the program in 2015, we've served nearly 17,000 students, teachers, and adults, and in large part due to the support from sponsors who are able to help us provide scholarships to underserved students and schools, so we can cover the cost of the 2 to 3 hour program. Groups come down for the morning for a field trip. We'll get 60 kids out there with us. You can see this group, which joined us last year, on board the boat. We'll do some water monitoring activities, test the pH of the water. Here in this photo, the kids are testing the dissolved oxygen levels. And so for a lot of them, it's the first time on the water, on a boat, and getting to do hands-on activities, and something that we hear in feedback. It's a memorable experience and something we want to continue to provide. For teachers who are interested in scheduling programs, I'll send these, kind of explanations of the programs we offer. We teach to state performance standards. And, if anyone is interested, you can follow up afterwards by sending me an email, and I'll be happy to provide this information. We also offer community outings, which we hope to resume either this summer or later in the year. And we'll do storytelling cruises, history cruises. We realized early on that there are no other public opportunities to experience West Point Lake on a boat. So this has been a popular draw for us and for the community. You can also book your own private tour of West Point Lake. We've had a number of community groups come out with us for evening cruises. So if folks are interested in that, looking ahead to the summer, the fall, do reach out and let us know. So at this point, that is it from me for the time being, and I'm gonna pass things on to Ashley. Ashley, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I don't know if it was my screen a second ago or yours, but there was a little bit of freezing going on. So I'm hoping that it's not my screen and that everything's good. Yes, so, okay, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about Columbus and Phenix City and some of the things that we are doing in the area. So the next slide, I'm going to cover a little bit about the history, so you can go ahead and flip me there. So when I started doing some research on Columbus and Phenix City, the sheer amount of history that I found was staggering. I'm sure Henry would enjoy it. He's a history buff, but I had to really condense it down. So basically what I found is that both Columbus and Phenix City, they have very, very strong ties to the Chattahoochee River. Without the Chattahoochee being where it was, we wouldn't have Columbus and Phenix City as we know them today. Columbus was actually founded as a trading post, and it was used to transport cotton and other different materials to and from Apalachicola, because there was a series of waterfalls and shoals that were near Franklin that actually prevented transport further up on the river. So materials and supplies would come down from Atlanta, they'd come to Columbus, and then Columbus would transport them down into Apalachicola and vice versa. So very, very interesting. So The Chattahoochee River was and still is used for hydropower for grist and textile mills. And so this photo here on the right-hand side, you can see one of our more famous and larger mills. This was Eagle and Phenix Mill. And so they are actually a textile mill. They specialized in cotton products. So you can see how close they are to the Chattahoochee. They had quite a few different engines and things like that that use the hydropower. Agricultural irrigation, forestry for timber products, and of course, the Chattahoochee provided and still does the drinking water for both cities. And then something else that was very, very interesting about Phenix City. So the town is known for its clay products and brick making. And one of our more prominent families in town are the Bickerstaffs. And they actually were the first to acquire land in Phenix City in the late 1800s. And they used the silt deposits from the Chattahoochee River that had built up from millions of years of the Chattahoochee flooding its banks to create these clay and brick products. And majority of the brickwork in the Chattahoochee Valley, in our downtown area, some of the older roads that you can see that are actually made of brick were made by the Bickerstaff family in Phenix City. So very interesting and would not be possible without the Chattahoochee River. So you can go ahead. So we are currently working to become more involved in this ongoing effort to keep watch over the river in Columbus and Phenix City, especially the portion that flows through the whitewater course. This is one of the largest urban whitewater courses, not only in the nation, but in the world. And it is, I can't even tell you the amount of people that go down the river every year, not only running the whitewater course via one of our rafting companies, but you have kayakers, fishermen, you know, people out there recreating on this stretch all the time. I myself have actually spent a lot of time out on the river, so it's a really, really fun course if you have the chance to check it out. But we want to become more involved working, so we actually have a series of sites that we have established in Columbus. Some are new and some are older, but you can see here that we do have some on the left-hand portion that run along the Chattahoochee itself. And then we have some that are based in these smaller tributaries of the Chattahoochee that do eventually run into the river. And they're kind of spread out more on the right side of the photo. So for our neighborhood water watch, if you'll flip to the next one. So this kind of shows some of the sites that I've established. Right now, we do have some interns that have been working with us prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. But before that, it was just me, myself, and I collecting these samples in Columbus. So we do have some new sites that we've established, one of them being Flat Rock Creek. For those of you who are familiar with Columbus, Flat Rock Creek flows because this area is recreated pretty heavily. I take my kids and dogs out there all the time. Let's see, are we back? Okay, my connection was being a little unstable there, so good. Let's see. Okay, let's try this again. So we have Flat Rock Creek, which is flowing through a park that's heavily recreated. We have some others, you know, that we're sampling. And then we're also working with the Protecting Streams and Communities from Industrial Pollution, or PSCIP program. This is something that we're working to establish in the Chattahoochee Valley area. So Muskogee, Russell, and Lee counties. We are using Google Earth and Google Maps to identify sites that should have a NPDES permit to regulate their stormwater. You know, we use public servers both in Alabama and Georgia once we locate these sites to make sure that they have their permits. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they're in violation for different things. And once we're able to get our boots back on the ground, we'll be able to go out, like this site specifically, I recently found in Phenix City, and do some on-site documentation, drive-bys. This site's had quite a few violations here in the past year, and see what we can do to help get them back on track. So you can go ahead. Okay, so Columbus has a combined sewer system, which, if you don't know what that is, it's basically a sewer system that combines rainwater runoff, sewage, and industrial wastewater, if that's applicable, and it sends it to treatment plants altogether to be treated before it's released. The problem with these combined sewer systems is that during heavy rain or snowfall events, which snow melt, we don't really have to worry about that, but during these heavy rain events, it can overwhelm this combined sewer system. And then what ends up happening is all of that mixed effluent, the rainwater and sewage and other things, end up being discharged directly into our waterways. So Columbus, oh no. Is Henry gone?
I think so. Here, give me just a second and I will get the PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you.
We knew this might happen. It'll be okay. Let's do this. And Ashley, if you'll just tell me.
Sure, you can go down. I think it's like slide, keep going. Number 15, yes.
Oh, 15. Okay, great.
I'm going to take a quick water break.
Sure.
All righty.
You just tell me when you need me to transition, okay?
Okay, so what you can see in the photo in the bottom is Columbus's combined sewer system. The white circles represent these 16 outfalls that we have, and these outfalls are located along the stretch of river where the bottom half of the whitewater course is located. You can see that the two green triangles are the two wastewater treatment plants that are located below the whitewater course. So when everything is good, these combined sewer systems send everything to one of the two wastewater treatment plants. When there are heavy rains, that's when the problems occur. So CRK, we've been monitoring these combined sewer discharges, and we've found high E. coli levels following heavy rain events. So we've been working with the EPD, and they have a new permit which is actually being finalized, which is amazing, that is going to place more stringent restrictions on the fecal coliform, the E. coli, that is allowed to exit these discharge pipes. So they have this new permit that's being finalized. We believe, and they believe, that this will improve water quality along this stretch of river, which is very important because the sheer number of people that are getting into the water in this area, they need to be protected. So this is a wonderful thing that's going on. We've got our comment letters that are available. If anybody would like to see them, they can email me after and we can get you that information about what we've been doing to work with the EPD. So you can move on for me. Okay, so I am going to spend just a little bit of time talking about a specific creek in Columbus. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Weracoba Creek. You can go ahead. So Weracoba Creek is a tributary of Bull Creek, which, for those of you who don't know, Bull Creek is one of the major tributaries in Columbus that connects directly to the Chattahoochee River. And a good majority of our creeks in Columbus actually flow into Bull Creek before it flows into the Chattahoochee. And Weracoba is one of those creeks. Weracoba runs through the heart of Columbus, and it's roughly 7 miles in channel length. It is listed under the Clean Water Act as a 303D impaired stream, which means it has issues in one of the following parameters. And in this case, it has multiple problems. One of them is fecal coliform counts. It's got some issues with fecal coliform, pH imbalances, and also the bio-M, which are the macroinvertebrate or your water aquatic insect communities being heavily impacted in this creek. The majority of the headwaters, which you can see above that little number 27 on the map, they are piped underground before it exits along the Fall Line Trace walking trail. And then the middle section from below the walking trail through Lakebottom Park and down through the Casita Industrial Park area, it is very highly channelized, which means it's basically concreted sides and a concrete bottom, which causes problems of its own. And that's throughout the midsection of the creek. And then the downstream area near its confluence with Bull Creek on Victory Drive, it is more natural. It's actually the best looking portion of the creek. And it does have a small vegetative buffer on either side of the creek that's kind of helping to protect it from some of the problems. So yeah, you can go forward. So, okay. So we have been monitoring a site in Lakebottom Park for around 2 years now. Lakebottom is one of the largest parks in Columbus. Again, highly trafficked. You've got an elementary gifted school and a high school that are right along the park. You have elderly people utilizing it, children, pets, sports teams. I grew up playing in the water. This park is very important to Columbus. And so we've been monitoring since 2018 at the Lakebottom site. And so what you see here on the graph, the red line is our EPA's recommendation for single samples not to exceed 235 colony forming units, which is just a unit of measurement when you're dealing with E. coli. So what we found from August 18 to March of 2020 is that all of our average samples collected for these months exceed that EPA standard. Majority of them exceeded by a very large margin of 10 times or more. So this area has a pretty significant issue with E. coli. You can go forward. Okay, so we did find an issue in October of 2019 around 17th Avenue, which is near the headwaters portion of the creek, which is primarily piped underground. And so what we found is that the E. coli levels at this site were more than 200 times the recommended EPA standard. And so we contacted Columbus Waterworks once we found this area where we believed a sewer issue was occurring. They sent a crew out immediately. They found a cracked sewer pipe. They worked to get this fixed as soon as possible. And then we went back out in December and we tested it again. And we found that the E. coli levels had dropped below that EPA recommended value of 235. So definitely back down to safe values, which is amazing. Yes, and you can go ahead, one more. So we do have a plan in place for Weracoba Creek. We have multiple sites along the creek from the headwaters all the way down to the confluence with Bull Creek that we are planning to continue to sample weekly. We're going to be hitting all the parameters that are listed. We're going to be looking at turbidity, which looks at sediment problems if there are any, conductivity, which looks for the heavy metals and oils and grease, things like that that could mess with the electricity in the creek. Total coliform and E. coli counts, those are both just measures of bacterial levels in the creek. And we do plan on working with, again, Columbus Waterworks and Columbus Consolidated Governments and all of these other entities that are local to help us as we find these issues to address them to improve the water quality in Weracoba. And I think, hopefully, if Henry's back, we can turn it over to him. Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. And yeah, I wish my computer hadn't done that earlier, but I'm glad y'all carried on.
Yeah, no problem.
Julia. Yeah, so we've got just one or two more things to cover and then welcome questions, but I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about what you see on the screen here. So there are two low-head dams in the Chattahoochee Valley area, specifically if you know where the city of Valley, Alabama is, Langdale Mill and Riverview, Langdale Dam and Riverview Dam. These are owned by Georgia Power, which in 2018, they started the process to begin talking about the removal of both of these low-head dams. These are structures that are 15 to 20 feet high, span the length of the river, or rather the width of the river, were used to power textile mills. And then in the 1930s, Georgia Power acquired them and generated electricity up until 2009. Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, we support the proposed removal of these dams, and we have been providing comments along the way. Obviously, if you remove these dams, it returns the river to its natural free-flowing state. It reduces safety hazards, connectivity for aquatic species is improved as well. And for folks who are fishing, paddling, it is safer overall. You would have a good stretch opened up of natural shoals on the Chattahoochee River. One thing to note for those involved in reading into this issue, the proposed removal here for Langdale and Riverview dams would differ from the dam removal that took place in the city of Columbus years ago, which is now the Whitewater course. And the difference is that here it would result in a natural stream bed as opposed to a manufactured stream bed. And that was done in Columbus. They manufactured the stream bed to improve the Whitewater course. That seems to have had some negative effects on aquatic species in Columbus. So we're hopeful and optimistic that the removal of Langdale and Riverview would be a positive for aquatic species like the shoal bass, which is a protected species of fish that can only be found in a very few places, including between Langdale and Riverview Dam. And I just wanted to finish just with a note that I know there are a number of folks in the local community who really care deeply about this issue and these two dams, and they know the area well because they've grown up there. They fished it all their lives. I've been fortunate to be out on that stretch of the river a number of times with friends, and I know how important this is to them. And for the people who want to see the dams remain, I understand some of the reasoning, but at the same time, Chattahoochee Riverkeeper is taking the long-term outlook, and we see that the removal of these two dams would be a positive thing over the long run. So I know if folks have questions about this, we'll be glad to answer. And I think we've got one more slide to share. And this, just on a light note, our usual event that we host in the city of West Point, the Valley River Rally, which is just a good kind of evening paddle with music and food afterwards there at the nice park on the riverbank. Previously, we had it scheduled for May 9th, so we've rescheduled that to September 26th, and we're optimistic that we'll be able to host a fun evening that day. So I hope you might put it on your calendar and come join us for the paddle, food, Wild Leap. We'll be providing the cold beverages as well. And just, we want to thank the city of West Point again for supporting Chattahoochee Riverkeeper in this event. So I believe that kind of summarizes everything we wanted to share with y'all. I know, Julia, if you have anything to share. I also just want to make a note that we have a number of folks on the call with us, including Jason Olseth, who is our riverkeeper, as well as some other staff. So if there are questions or maybe something that we left out, they're there to help us. And the last thing I'll say is just how much I appreciate working for Chattahoochee Riverkeeper and the great team that we have, and the fact that while me and Ashley work out of the LaGrange office somewhat independently, to be with the team, the folks in our Atlanta office, the folks in our Headwaters office, it's a great group, and it's really nice to have such a wealth of knowledge. But that being said, if y'all have questions or want to share something that we should know, now is a good time to do that, because we've got about 5 or so minutes left. So Julia, whatever is the best process to answer questions.
Yeah, you're welcome to post your questions here in the Zoom chat. We're also taking them through the Facebook comments if you'd rather ask them that way. We already have a few. The first one comes from Stephen, who asked this actually when he was registering for the webinar. He says, what river access points and boat ramps are currently open, given these stay-at-home orders in place?
And I'll share, and then I know Ashley has some info about that too. For one thing, on West Point Lake, most boat ramps are open. I know the campgrounds are closed, but most boat ramps that I'm aware of on the river in the Middle Chattahoochee region are open. Ashley?
Yeah, so specifically in Columbus, the Bulldog bait and tackle store itself is open, and also the boat ramp at Rotary Park, which those two are kind of tied together. They are open. I know that Lake Oliver Marina is completely closed. Goat Rock, I haven't heard anything about them being closed. There is a pay box where you pay to park when you use the boat ramp. So I'm assuming that they are open, but because they are owned by Georgia Power, you could go ahead and probably just check their website. But I know for a fact Lake Oliver Marina in its entirety is closed.
Great. Thank you both for addressing that. The next question comes from Chris, who posted this in the Zoom chat. They ask, will the removal of these dams help the water quality issues currently being suffered in Apalachicola?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, obviously Chris is aware of the whole watershed, Chattahoochee River being the Chattahoochee and the Flint formed the Apalachicola River, which flows to the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not aware of any effects that removing these two relatively small dams will have. And I will note that much of the issue with the Apalachicola River deals more with water quantity and the amount of water that's flowing from the Chattahoochee and Flint into the Apalachicola. But again, locally, I think it's going to be a positive impact for one, safety on the water. And I would, yeah, if Ashley or if Jason has a comment on that, otherwise, the removal of the two low head dams will likely not have an effect on Apalachicola.
Jason? Hold on, he's still muted.
Okay. Yeah, Henry, you answered that well. It's when you're talking about the entire system and the Apalachicola down at the bottom of the bathtub, these two dams are not backing up a significant amount of water that can be used to be released, during periods of drought or anything to provide any relief. It's more, local river passage and that type of impact. I don't think you're going to see anything significant all the way down at the bottom of Apalachicola.
All right, Julia, yeah. Any other pressing questions?
Yeah, we just got a great one come in through our Facebook. Del Pool asks, how can we get more trash collection bins near the river and also fishing line disposal bins?
And, to answer that question as best I can, for one, with the fishing line, I know the Boy Scouts, Boy Scout troops or scouts have been very active in setting up those fishing line recycling containers. So really give them credit for that. And as far as trash cleanups, I know we've rescheduled the 10th annual Sweep the Hooch for August 29th, and definitely encourage folks to volunteer. You can go on our website, find a site that's near you. We have them from Columbus, West Point Lake on up through Atlanta. I think over 40 sites you can choose from to volunteer to help collect trash. And we also have a new and growing effort to install trash traps on small tributary creeks, especially in urban areas. So that's really helping us reduce the amount of trash flowing downstream into places like West Point Lake. And so long term, that's going to be a great program that helps. I know, yeah, Jason, if you want to add anything to trash traps or to that question.
Yeah, a lot of that just comes down to funding, of course, and partnerships with local governments. And we are working on building more and more of those. And we've got a great relationship with LaGrange, Troup County, Carroll County, and just keep on building those relationships and launching those types of initiatives and partnerships has really become a key moving forward.
I would just like to add, so I see here from Jan, she's saying the person asking about the trash receptacles was saying more along the lines of having them available when you get off the water, you know, for pleasure paddles and things like that. In that case, it depends if you're, you know, in a park that's managed by Georgia Power or the Corps of Engineers or something along those lines, maybe contacting them to see what they'd be willing to do, or again, maybe working with a group like the Boy Scouts or something. But if it's something in a public park, then you may have to discuss it with whoever manages that park.
Julia, I'll hand it back to you. I know we're a few minutes. I feel like we could keep going on for the rest of the afternoon, but if there are any more questions.
I don't think we have any more questions. I'm not seeing anything in the chat or the Facebook comments at this point. I will let everybody know, I said it in the chat, but we are recording this session and it will be available both on our Facebook page and our YouTube page, and we will be emailing out a link to this recording later on today. If you are watching on Facebook and you would also like to be emailed the link, if you could please message us your email address, we'd be happy to send it to you that way. And then of course you can just respond to that email with any questions you may think of later on. So Henry, Ashley, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
No, thank you very much, everyone who tuned in, and thank you again. I don't think I could say it any better than Henry to our wonderful staff.
Yep, thank you. And just know that supporting Chattahoochee Riverkeeper is a great way to help us protect the river now and really looking towards the future as well. And also, just on a note, you know, with the current times we're going through, helping any way you can is very much appreciated. And know that while our staff were working remotely for the time, we are looking ahead and hope to be either back in our offices, but back out on the water. And we have these events coming up later this summer in the fall. So thank you for tuning in, and looking forward to seeing you on the water soon.
Great. Thank you all. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.